Jonathan Daniels came from a Bradford, Vermont family and grew up in southern New Hampshire in the 1950s. Jonathan was valedictorian at Virginia Military Institute. He went on to Harvard for graduate work in English literature, and then he switched to Episcopal Divinity School. He answered the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s call for white clergy to come down to Selma, Alabama. And once he was there, Jonathan Daniels decided to stay and take a leave from seminary. Daniels was 26. He was working with 17-year-old Ruby Sales in a group of black and white civil rights activists in a tiny town in central Alabama. They were arrested, moved to jail in another town, and treated extremely harshly by the police. They were released finally, suddenly, without any transportation. They were waiting for rides. They were hungry and thirsty, and 4 of them went to the only store that would serve blacks as well as whites to get some sodas for the whole group. Standing in the doorway of that store was a large white man holding a shotgun. He was an unpaid, deputized deputy sheriff. And he refused to let them in the store and argued with them. And then in the heat of it, he turned his shotgun at Ruby Sales. Jonathan Daniels jumped in and pushed her down, and he took the full blast of the shotgun in his chest. He died instantly. Martin Luther King Jr. heard about this and said, "One of the most heroic deeds of which I have heard in my entire ministry was performed by Jonathan Daniels." That is Christ. It is Christ's light shining through a human. It is Christ's love. It is the source and force that created the earth and all life. It is the spirit of all nature that we saw in the man Jesus, shining through the man Jonathan Daniels. It is as beautiful and meaningful as human life can be. It is the force that has the power to save this world, as it saved Ruby Sales. The Christ in us will throw itself in front of black lives in America so that they are freed and restored to human dignity and equality. Christ in us will throw itself in front of this earth until humanity stops destroying it. We see Christ in the compassion and courage of frontline pandemic workers. We see Christ in the love and dedication of teachers who have been working so hard for their students. We see Christ in a single mother working 3 jobs to keep her children from going hungry and homeless. We see it in musicians, artists, and actors who are still finding ways to serve in this time. We also see Christ looking out through the eyes of a refugee child, separated from her family, looking out through a chain-link cage. We see Christ sleeping in a doorway in a city street. We see that Christ is hungry. Christ is in prison. Christ is sick. The Christ in Jesus told us this. A leading social scientist, Walter Truett Anderson, believes that every advanced species in the universe must reach a transition moment where it recognizes that it is responsible for the future of all life on its particular planet. To own that responsibility, we need to change our narrative about who we are today. We have to see that it is the universe acting through us. That's who we are. When we brush our teeth, the universe is brushing one of its billions of sets of teeth through us. That spirit of the universe wants life on earth to flourish. It wants to work through us to help make that happen. This view of ourselves aligns with the mystical vision that begins the Gospel of John. It says, "In the beginning was the Word." The Word is another name for Christ. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him, the Word, Christ, is life, and the life is the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. Christ is always becoming flesh. It's easy to see Christ in people who are full of that light and love. But without him, not one thing came into being. The spirit of life is also in those who stand against the Christ that we see in people like Jonathan Daniels and Ruby Sales. Christ is in that deputy who is so full of murderous fear and hate that he said a year later that he would shoot Daniels again if he had the chance. Gandhi and King based their nonviolent movements on the truth that there was latent goodness in those who were working against them, and that everyone has the potential to turn from their past greedy and oppressive and destructive ways. One of the most beautiful stories that I know about this is Graham Greene's great novel, The Power and the Glory. The main character is known as the Whiskey Priest, for obvious reasons, and he has secretly broken his vow of celibacy and fathered a child with a young parishioner. He serves in an impoverished Central American country that has been taken over by a brutal government that has outlawed religion. Many priests are standing up courageously to defend the rights of the poor, and they are being publicly executed. But the Whiskey Priest abandons his people and runs for his life. Yet, in the end, that weak, cowardly man makes one small choice with the compassionate heart of Christ, and though it proves to be futile, another person sees what he does and is inspired to dedicate his life and risk his life to do the same kinds of acts. We do not have to be perfect to shine Christ through us. We do not have to be always right or always brave. All God needs is for us to open to the Spirit and try to follow the way of love and light that it lays before us in this moment. The will of the universe that we call God created us and inspired our evolution over millions of years. All species now alive are depending on human consciousness evolving another step. The one hope for their survival and ours is that we choose to nurture the heart and mind of Christ within us and change the dominant human culture to be ruled by oneness, compassion, and love. Our task is to let our small share of Christ's light shine. Jonathan Daniels did that, and Ruby Sales saw it, and she was inspired by the love and light that she saw. And she followed Jonathan Daniels' path back north to Episcopal Divinity School. And Ruby Sales became a public theologian and human rights activist who is still speaking and inspiring thousands of people today. I recommend you go to her Facebook page and read what she writes from her porch every day. The world needs the love and light that we have to offer. So let us pray in silence, opening our hearts to the Spirit and wordlessly saying yes with our entire being to Christ living in us and working through us. Let us pray in silence. Amen.